Welcome, everybody, to episode 32. I am MaskedSwan. As always, I am joined by the man in the middle that made me feel like Fat Albert for about 30 seconds. Initialise. Want to explain that?
I think currently you sound like you need something to deal with constipation, mate.
Do you need a diuretic? Yeah.
Might be.
I'm
Maybe.
a little tired. It's not the kind of noises I was expecting to hear on the podcast, but I feel okay.
This is the best start to a podcast we've maybe ever had.
Yeah, maybe.
I am.
If you're not watching this,
So I know we've been
recommend
introduced to MaskedSwan before, but I've never been introduced to just Fabric Mask, which is apparently what the camera's pointing at right
this
now.
This is the mask. This is the mask. You know, like, was that saying, Al? That specifically about, you know, like, people didn't care who I was until I wore the mask. Well, that's now we're just looking at the mask itself, not the person.
Good.
It's just mask.
The other person that you've been hearing, ladies and gentlemen, is Nymaera. Welcome, Nymaera, to the podcast as always. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay, thank you. Sounds like your mic might have changed as well, Lexi, just so you know.
What?
It's strange stuff.
Yeah, it's changed your mic.
Okay. Obviously I'm here. We were live a little earlier, kind of doing the live reactions to the live viewing and all that stuff. We've had a bit of a break to go grab some lunch, get some coffee, and have a think about things. Obviously, that's what I've been doing, and I'm ready to talk about some World Draws, I think.
Think so?
Absolutely. Hopefully my mic's now
It's wonderful
fixed
now.
again.
Wonderful.
It
yeah.
is good. Very good. Very good. Very good. That is what happens when you switch to the alt webcam, apparently. Won't do a habit of that. Welcome, everybody, to the LJL Officially Unofficial podcast, Season 2, Episode 31. As already mentioned, we were live earlier watching the World's Groups play-in draw. We're going to be going over all of that. But first and foremost, gentlemen, it's been about a week since we've spoken to one another live on the podcast. Initialise, how you doing, buddy?
Doing all right. Thank you,
Yeah.
Lexi.
Well, you-
I've got a geezer accent going on. Been
Okay.
going down to the local, having a good one.
Been up to much, mate?
Have I been up to much? A couple of bits of social stuff, actually. Managed to go to a pub quiz, couple of dates. It's been quite nice, really. Not been able to do that kind of thing in a while. So, yeah.
Good.
It's a surprisingly nice social week. Now for more work, though.
More work for the wicked. Worlds is upon us. You'll have to do that. Nymaera, how's your week been, buddy?
It's been actually. What have I been doing? I've been streaming mainly. I have to say, I've been doing some more individual stuff because it's lovely to do stuff with the LJL. But I figured, hang on, if I'm gonna do stuff over off season, let's focus on myself a little bit, get some content running. So I started to stream a bit. Obviously, not got uni to worry about now because I'm taking that year off. And that's been kind of fun actually, getting it back into the swing of that. It is kind of working one way, but it's also pseudo-social interaction in another way, which is kind of healthy for me. And of course, like, been preparing a bit for Worlds as well. So actually, you hopped onto my stream the other day to VOD review the semi-finals of DFM Access, just so again we can kind of have a bit more of an in-depth look at the team we're sending to the World Championship, and I think I've got a bit of a better idea now, though I did have a pretty good idea before. It's just nice to go over things in a bit more of a long-form content.
Yeah, absolutely. That review was very interesting because I forgot at moments how much Axis did attempt to push. It's an attempt.
They're a good team.
They are.
They came in with a good game plan, and they managed to get some of their things rolling. It didn't work out in the end, but they really tried.
Rumble Jungle Bonk was great fun.
It was great. Great.
Sadly, I don't expect to see it at all at Worlds, but hey, I mean, a man can dream. A man can dream. This week, God, what have I been doing? Well, I hurt my back. That was pretty good. So your boy used to be all about climbing on stuff, fucking throwing his body all over things, right? I've destroyed my ankles as a child, so I've been to the accident emergency room far too many times. They've said, hey, if you've broken your ankle one of these times, it actually would have been better for you than doing soft tissue damage. So,
I used to break a bone every year as a kid, pretty much. I've broken, like, my upper arm, both of my lower arms, a load of fingers, had my nose broken my feet.
All right.
When was the last time you broke something?
A little while ago now.
Bank.
All right.
What do you mean?
So I was trying to do, so you know the pull-up bars.
Yeah.
I pulled up and I was like, I want to kind of try and go over the top, but I fucked it up. So I tried to hook my legs around, and I hooked my legs around. But then I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just here. I'm like, well, I know what I used to do, and I used to do this all the time when I
backwards.
was 12. And this is important. I used to hang from my feet just upside down. I could just do that. I just could do that. I'm getting about halfway. Feet fell. I fall about about 4 or 5 feet right onto my back. I got
What?
winded like nothing else. It fucking hurt.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
That's like that's like at the kind of height where you're actually going to start taking full damage in D&D. Like, good job. You just took
Nice
2d6,
job on the D6.
I feel like I
2d6
felt
damage.
the full damage. I feel like I felt it.
You-
I'm
you-
fine now.
You're saying the
sore.
first thing you don't do when you load into a new game is check for full damage? This is rookie stuff, Lexi.
I mean, no one told me to do this IRL. It was yeah. Other than that, what have I been up to? Played some video games.
Good.
I'm currently doing my hosting reel and rejigging my website. If you're interested, go to
checked it, actually. It's
alexswan.co.uk. Right in this second,
Yeah.
not right this second. I'll open up in another tab. You can see my website.
Yeah, because I went through it and like, because I often do like some VOD. I mean, I do some VOD review on stream with like games and stuff, but I do it for like casting stuff too. And actually, your hosting stuff is like picking up the mini things you do. It's pretty cool. So go watch that. Go watch the highlight reel. It's the best of the best.
FYI, the reason we're doing this is because your boy needs to earn some paper.
Yes.
So fucking hire me.
Yeah.
With that said, I can do broadcast manager, content manager. I can organize
like,
people. I can whip them into shape. I can do hosting. I can be the voice of your content thing.
Ouch.
Orgs out there, if you're interested in actually being successful off of a zero budget, I can vaguely do things if I can get Nymaera and Initialise to work with me.
Yeah, that's true. Please.
I
pay us
work.
money.
I actually do work.
We work.
Wow,
What?
crazy.
LJL. Anyway, gentlemen, that's what we've been doing over the last week. We could keep talking for absolute hours if we wanted to, and just about that, but I don't think that's what people are here for, sadly. So let's actually get into what this podcast is for. We're going to be giving our reaction to the play-ins draw. If you didn't watch that live, this is your alternative location for that. One of our play-in tier lists. So before the actual draws happened, I asked these two, as well along with myself, to go off and do some tier lists. So these are very subjective tier lists. We could definitely do another one live between the three of us, between these two groups that we do have, but something to go through, and it's an interesting one kind of going before and after, doing these compares and contrasting. We've got the group tier lists as well that we're going to probably run over, and then we'll talk some meta talk, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff as well. Gentlemen, first things first though. Play-ins is all we really give a shit about. Let's be real here, because that's where the big important team is. We have the two groups, and Nymaera, if you could throw that on screen for our lovely video people.
Wait, did I actually put? Okay, I might need to go. Just give me hang fire on that. I did
That's
the
all
tier
right,
list.
mate. I can feel for you. So Group A for any of our audio listeners, because we facilitate to both on this podcast, because that's what we do. Group A is Hunway Life, LNG, Infinity, Peace, and Red Candidats. I think it's
Red Cannons, yeah.
And for Group B, we have Beyond, Gaming, Cloud9, UOL, GS, because I'm never going to learn how to access
Galatasaray.
Yeah, no, that's not happening for me. And Detonation focused me. So Group A and Group B. Group A got Chinese fourth seed and LCK fourth seed. We got PCS second seed and LCS or wildcard region number 3. Or number 5, number 8. LCS isn't a major region, is what I'm trying to make the joke of here. It wasn't done very well.
I was too busy.
Both of my co-hosts smirked, so I'm off the hook.
I was like, oh guys, give me some time. I'm gonna do some stuff out the groups. Well, I can do that now actually. So this is the playing groups. There you go. Have fun with that. This is what we ended up with the draws. Wait, actually, I can where's the thing? I can technically do that. Where's the thing?
We're doing this lovely hand movement, but no one can see it because we're not on proper.
No, it's just this guy.
Oh dear.
I got him that like the stream deck for like his birthday a couple of years ago, and it was a mistake. Lexi.
Yes.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a great gift that I'm still envious that I don't have one of my own yet.
We'll sort something out, buddy. We'll sort something out.
Over to you guys for group number A. Obviously, I know you. Well, I know you both are very receptive over to LCK and the Korean League. It's not a league I remotely follow, so I always just stem off of you two for my knowledge and information. Am I right in assuming this is the group of death, being Group A?
Sort of. It is the group of death if you are one
Not
of the
LNG?
wildcard teams. If you're not one of the wildcard teams, basically because what you are saying is likelihood is LNG are going to come first. Actually, are probably going to come second. Maybe there's some arguments about that. That's my take right now. And you've kind of got the other three fighting up for that third place team. Third place is then looking to go through a best of 5 to go up and fight against one of any Group B is close. There's a lot of serious talent in there.
Yep.
And the chances are it's someone like DFM or Cloud9 or maybe even Beyond Gaming if they have a rough time, who are all ridiculously stacked. Either you're not coming first or second, you've got to go through a best of 5 to fight off against one of the second place team from Group B, who also look pretty damn scary. So if you're bottom 3 in Group A, you're fucked. My take.
I would actually go the other way around. I think that as long as you're not 5th in Group A, you're all right.
Okay.
If you are aiming to get a... What's the best way to put this? Because I think that in a best of 1 situation, Group A is very hard. I think that HLA and LNG were the 2 best Pool 1 teams. I think that Red Canids, Infinity, not shabby in terms of the Pool 2 teams too, although Peace coming in with the next, if there's a chat sheet, we have no idea if that'll upgrade or downgrade that team. I think Group A in the best of 1 format is going to be rough for the Pool 2 teams. That's just difficult, which means that if you are then not top 2 in Group B, you're kind of screwed, because while you might have to get through a best of 5 against your own group, sure, I think the best of 1 at Group B, it's much closer. I think lots of teams have a way to snipe things off, and a single round robin, best of 1, that's definitely something which can work out for you. If you have to go up in a best of 5 versus an HLA or an LNG, that's very, very difficult. I think for the to get top 2 in Group B, though, is much, much easier. So it's difficult in one sense, hard in another. I think that Group A has got the harder best of 1 format. I think Group B has got the harder best of 5 format.
Let's actually run over that format, so for anyone that isn't fully aware of how it's going to work, play-ins will start in the group stage, as we've already been talking about to absolute ad nauseum. It is a single round robin, ladies and gentlemen. No doubles, nothing else. It's the exact same repeat. We are running back last year's Worlds, which, by the way, we love.
Let's not talk about that for V3.
Now, yeah, it didn't work out for V3, but outside of that, it was a fantastic format, even though we went out.
Yeah.
That's normally the sign of a good format. If you go out in it and you still feel like it's a good format, even though the team we were supporting went out, and we still liked it, it was good. So we're hoping realistically DFM will at minimum leave this group 2 and 2. Minimum, I feel like, is a fair shout. Beat the 2 minor regions, lose to the major region teams or the group 1, the Pool 1 teams. End up 3rd/4th, depending on how things run out. But that is the format. It's a single round robin. Then what happens, ladies and gentlemen, is we go to a group stage, obviously depending on tiebreakers and the like, because you do have to have a definitive first place. First place just goes straight into the main event. Don't have to worry about it. 5th place, like with V3 Sports last year, you're gone. Done. Yeah. Go home, lads. Try it again. Run it back. Figure it out. Second place goes in and waits for the winner of 3rd and 4th from the opposite group, and then vice versa, obviously, for the other side. 3rd and 4th place play out, and then they go and play 2nd place from the opposite group.
I think it's a good format. Yeah. It's a good format, right? Because it means that, I mean, just as we were saying here, right?
Oh, and the knockout stage is best of 5. Like, it's actually really good. Yeah.
And which means that basically for, in first place, I mean, the only people that don't get best of 5 experience at Worlds in this are like the first and last place finishing teams. And if you're first, you get a group stage, whatever, right? So it's only fifth place, which gets like the real short end of the stick, where you get basically no international like exposure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You get a best of 5 outside of that, which I think is really, really good for a lot of minor regions. I think it's a more interesting format. It's still in a manageable amount of games. You still have to go through a single round robin best of 1, which is high volatility, not really the best competitive integrity. It's not best at actually telling who are the best teams. Stuff like that. And I think that the cross format between third, fourth place winner facing off against second seed winner of the group does give you it gives you kind of like that bridging gap between the two groups and just making sure that it isn't just a group of death and easy way into groups. I think it does give you a way to say actually kind of levels it out one way or the other. Yes, it will benefit some people in first place, in third, fourth place to a certain extent, but it kind of evens out the pressure disparity you might get in those groups where you've got like a super stacked one group. And I think that's what's happened here, actually. So I think that's a very good format. I think it's good for the minor regions, and I think it's a better viewing experience too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm excited because if we just take this as a black and white approach, and I think we'll come into this a little bit later, but we need to also talk about Group B, because that's the main group. We've only mentioned Group A, where I went to you guys and said Group of Death. Is it the Group of Death? You're both like, most likely, if you're a minor region team, you're hoping to just scrape in on third and fourth and pray to God the second seed from Group B is something beatable. Well, it might be an interesting one, because Group B is Detonation Focus Me's group, and this group really panned out to a place that I think was kind of best case scenario, kind of worst case scenario. People aren't quite sure where to do it. Our community at the moment is in a lot of mix. I'm of the opinion, and I've said this on Twitter, so I'm going to say it here as the opening statement for me. And I actually did this in the reaction as well. DFM have a 40% chance of being the first seed in this group.
Half agree with you. I'm not sure I put the percentage that high, but I think they are absolutely one of the front
I do it for the clickbait.
Yeah,
do it.
Look, I mean, in my mind, I still think probably people haven't seen Beyond Gaming's and so don't know how good they are. I think if you go back, watch PCS playoffs, particularly the two best of fives between Beyond Gaming and of course PSG Talon. Now we all saw how good PSG Talon were at MSI. They went 5-5 overall in that playoffs. BYG won the Juggernaut match. They lost in the finals. But all I'm saying is, if they went 5-5 with PSG, with the likes of Doggo, who we saw as the substitute, kind of like stand-in player for PSG, at
Not even a
MSI,
sub, stand-in, yeah.
Stand-in, came in and absolutely crushed. He's still really, really good. He's with his normal roster this time. I feel like BYG are a team to be afraid of. So I would probably put them, for my mind, as probably the front runners. But then I think it's honestly just behind them. It's C9 and DFM in my mind.
So I think
about
that
you,
there
Alex?
are a lot of parallels between BIG and Rascal Jester, actually.
Actually, not far wrong.
And like
Agree.
DFM, if you look at like the DFM Rascal Jester and the PSG BYG paths to Worlds and how the Juggernaut match into finals went, DFM had a very similar situation where they lost the Juggernaut match and then they won through in the finals. Rascal Jester are also a team that plays heavily through bot lane, heavily through hypercarry bot lanes, playing around strong side of the map there between Sol and Secret, who, if you watched our content before, we rate them very, very highly and we think they are a good team. This gets even better because DFM played against another hypercarry bot team in Axis in the semi-finals, and they crushed both of them. BYG did have a tight run versus PSG, and we tend to agree that the PSS is a higher level of competition than something like the LJL, which is a minor region, it's a one-seed region. However, DFM have recent relevant practice against bot lane-centric teams of a high caliber, and I think that will stand them in good stead for Group B. We'll talk a little bit more about... I don't know when you guys want to talk about matchups for DFM and Group B, because we might do that as a separate thing. What that means, basically, is that I think that the difference between the Pool 1 and the Pool 2 teams in Group B is a lot less in Group A. I think that the only way... I think that maybe the strongest Pool 2 team we could... I mean, maybe if we had something like Infinity instead of Galatasaray or something like that, maybe that would be a harder Group 2 thing, but I think Group B between all 5 teams is much more level than Group A, which is a lot more spiky in that sense, which means that potentially Group B is very, very volatile.
And I'd love... Oh, go for it, Sam.
So I'm really sorry. Just one last little thing I wanted to add in as a spicy take, and I'm aware you might want to take me back from this tangent, so feel free to. But I'll also add, because you're asking whether this was a group of death, I'll also say that even if you come in third in this one, and you go on to play the best of 5, likely versus HLE, I think there is a fairly decent chance to beat HLE in a best of 5. Don't get me wrong, I think they're still favoured, but I think HLE, as far as a Pool 1 team, are, along with C9, the team that you go, yeah, I see your distinct weaknesses, because they were very rough in the regular season, and come playoffs, Deft and Chovy turned online, and Vista turned up as well, which is a big deal. But I still think Morgan and Willa, potentially you can punish in that top side of the map, and I think we've seen the inconsistency in HLE already, despite some of the ridiculous star power in the mid and AD carry. So
The highs
even
are
if you come third, and
yeah, the highs for Humble Life are higher. Well, the height of Rock's Tiger. Like literally, like if we go, well, because
That's
their
a mouthful.
history,
I see.
their history,
Okay.
their history. It's the same
Okay,
org.
yeah,
It's
no,
just
no,
been
yeah.
rebranded. So I like to try and shoehorn that in a little bit. The highs could be as high as Rock's. The lows could be as high or as low as
Yeah.
KT Rolster. I'm sorry. I had to
Some
think of
truth.
I had to
Season
think
8
of it.
KT, man. Season 8 KT.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be the bad guy here, but dun dun dun. I mean, there's that chance that we will just hurt people's feelings in a best of 5. I want to go into matchups, and I really do want to do that, Alex. But I want us
Yeah,
to
let's separate
first do our tier lists.
That's what I was
just
thinking.
Before,
Yeah. I was like, oh
yeah,
crap,
yeah.
I really want to make this point, which means I have to go into this. Let's go do tier list.
Just before we do, though, just before we do, this is one thing I want to talk about in the explicit groups itself, because this is something I mentioned on our reaction that I wouldn't say until the podcast. Group B has the better minor region teams in my eyes than Group A. I think Group A is the weakest minor region teams. Shoot me down.
Nope.
Oh, I pretty much
Infinity's
said the same thing.
Infinity's the only team I'm a little bit scared of, and I was trying to big them up, do the whole wrestling thing. Nymaera wasn't having any of that. He was like, no, we slapped them. And I'm like, no, but fine, whatever. All right, whatever. Yeah, I agree. I do agree
like,
with you.
White Lotus and Ackerman are very, very good.
Bogax isn't bad. He has his moments. You know?
But we did slap them.
Sam Bogax also did go 0-0 on Gangplank versus C9. So.
True, I know. Like, yeah, you're right. You're right. But you're right.
Six
White
round
Lotus is really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tier list.
Anyway, let's go to tier lists. I asked these gentlemen, could you give me your tier lists before the draw? Because that was an important disparity between the two. Because then if, hey, our groups are in the same one, we get to see. I don't know how Nymaera, but I'm guessing we've got one of each of our photos.
You can actually look on Discord. I'm streaming it to you.
Oh my god.
I know, crazy. I was wondering if you'd done
move
that.
it to a different screen so I can see it a bit better. There we go.
Okay. Oh wow, you've actually done it like that. That's even smarter. Holy
see?
man. Way better than I thought it was. Let's quickly run over this though, the tier list for any of our audio listeners out there. I'm going to just go top down, and then I'm going to hand it over to each of you depending on the tier. I'm going to take tier number 1 though. That's the S tier. LNG across the board. We all agree. Number 1, they're making it out. I've gone auto groups, and you've both got S tier. I don't think there was ever a doubt that was going to be the case.
That team is dumb good.
Similar to last Worlds, really. The 4th seed. Yeah, LNG. They shut the bed, but then they figured it out later. So yeah, knocked out our hopes and dreams. In the next tier down, depending on if it's A or S, I think it's just fine if we just go in tier down, and that's fine. Nymaera, where have we got everybody each?
So, obviously you see HLE basically being the staple there. The only difference is you guys have put the other 3 teams that I put with them in C9, Beyond, and DFM onto a tier below. I actually think the gap between them, because of how stylistically these teams might match up well or poorly, I think it's worth putting them in the same tier, just because I think that I think multiple of these teams have good and bad matchups between them. It's worth putting them closer together, particularly in a format like play-ins, where I'm like, actually, it's so volatile. Even when it comes to a best of 5, I think any of these teams could be reasonably seen as beating another team. However, you guys have put actually the rung above them, which I think is reasonable if you don't take into account like some of the maybe the format.
I actually had pretty similar reasoning to you. So as a kind of heads up for all your listeners, I've got LNG in S+, and then nobody in S. I've got a gap for good reason.
Is that gap important for you?
It is a very important gap. Because I think HLE are probably the second best team. but I think that it's not that clear. And I've got the 3 teams basically in the A tier nipping at their heels. And while I'd give HLE an edge, I don't actually think it's all that big, and it would not be that much of an upset if one of those 3 teams beat them.
Yeah. No, I think we're all in the same kind of wheelhouse here. Looking at it from what you guys have both said, I completely concur with both of you. Initialise, though, what's happening the next tier down for everyone? And remember our lovely, beautiful listeners out there.
So absolutely. So this is kind of, I'm assuming we kind of said that we've kind of split up those tiers. We said like that tier above was HLE, then sort of DFM C9 and beyond in some sort of format. But below that, for most people, I myself have got Infinity, Unicorns, and Galatasaray in that kind of tier below. That's C tier for me.
Fair.
You've got Unicorns of Love by themselves in kind of a B tier, just below those the 3 we kind of mentioned before. And Owl's got Infinity and Red Canids there, interestingly.
We're definitely all starting to disagree. Initialise, what's your reasoning for kind of those 3 together of Infinity, UOL, and GS?
GS was the one I took a little bit more to place, and maybe Al's right in say flicking red cannons around there. But I think Turkey as a region is still relatively strong. I think they are weaker than they have been before, because perhaps last year I would have said budged everybody up and had Turkey just below people, with that super massive team with Kakao and Snowflower. But I still think there's
That was
talent in the
great.
region, and I think with the likes of, I also think like Infinity and Unicorns of Love, they're good teams, but I think I have seen clear weaknesses. I don't think it's been as clear cut their victories in their regions that it has been recently. So I still got them as like decent to good, but with perhaps a little bit more uncertainty than years prior, at least in my mind.
Okay,
Right,
so
you, Axe.
this is the area where, of course, these are some of the lesser covered regions, and there is that caveat of we probably don't have the best read on them because we're not the regional experts for Turkey, for CBLOL. And yes, I have talked to a couple of these people as well. I mean, friend of the broadcast, Rudude, who I think that we've all worked with to a certain extent before. Obviously
Great guy.
does really great guy. Works on CBLOL English alongside like Day1 and Random Minioncaster and that lot. They're a good bunch. They actually think that the group draw is good for Red Cannons, by the way. They say actually, hang on, we managed to dodge XYZ teams. Maybe we get like an easier, like maybe we get a chance to get third, fourth, and then best of 5 it through. But for me, Infinity and Red Canids are in the tier below A and above C because so I basically put Infinity and Red Canids above UOL Galatasaray rather, and then Peace because I have more caveats to the other teams than I do for them. I think Infinity deservedly have to be in that kind of group below because they are in terms of like not in the mid pack, but not quite towards A because they have kept the same roster from MSI. I think that they are going to have in a similar situation to DFM where they've got that international experience now. White Lotus and Ackerman, I was very impressed with at MSI. I think that they have a chance of taking the bot lane by storm against some of these teams. And Red Canids actually look pretty decent regionally. I think more of the problem is just looking at the weaknesses of the other teams rather than the strengths of those two. However, willing to change my opinion as and when evidence does present itself.
Yeah, my other issue with the Red Canids is more actually specifically nothing to do with them, just the league that they play in, and that CBLOL doesn't have a loser bracket for top seeds.
Ah, right, yeah.
So that my concern was that one best of 5 Pain Gaming got knocked out, and then a bad match afterwards, and it was like, wait, the first and second seed just had like a bad match back to back, and then there's no justice for them.
I mean,
obviously, if anyone's aware, we're huge fans of having top, higher seeds having an opportunity to lose one best of 5. We love our Juggernaut match. We've said countless times, we think we've got one of the best minor region systems in League esports. That isn't like a tournament series like CS:GO, Valorant sort of thing where you can't get that because Masters formats are actually fucking sicko mode, but that's not for here or there. The reason I put UOL in B tier is because truly for me, and as I've done a bit of text on my tier list. I've got auto groups, and then the bottom 2 I've got a bit of text going, I think this is where these teams are going to lie. I'll get into that into a moment. But I do think UOL, in a similar way that you were talking about Infinity, Nymaera, it's that same kind of thing. I think they're a cut above the rest, but they're in that kind of awkward space where I don't have them with C9, DFM, and beyond. But there's a world that they could be, and I just need to see more from them and when the games get on the Rift. Gentlemen, got our next tier. For Nymaera, you've gone UOL and GS in your C tier.
Yep.
For me, my C tier is losing in the first round of BO5. So this is where I'm pegging teams to kind of end up if they were in this kind of spot. I've got Infinity and Red Canids, and Initialise. He's actually just D tier because he just has already done his C tier.
Yeah.
It's Peace and Red Canids at the very bottom. Now, quick disclosure, because I think it's important that we just do this as well. Peace for Nymaera, D. And for myself, I said not making the best of 5 was Peace and GS. So we're in kind of similar realms here if we switch one or two things around. Gentlemen, what's your reasoning first for C, and obviously the group's probably making it out first, or the team's making it out, and the others that might not be.
So to clarify, I've kind of done my one based on relative strength rather than the likelihood of making out of groups, because I'm aware obviously Peace and Red Canids are both in the same group. So
Yep.
that's like obviously I can see the way you've done. You're saying, okay, I don't think these two are probably making it out, which is fair. I think my problem with Red Canids.
Oh, these are just two random teams I selected. Well, they weren't random.
Exactly.
I genuinely thought they wouldn't make it out.
I think Peace is in a bit of an interesting spot where they've had to switch out players because of
I would
issues. And while they've got Chappie coming in, he's coming in as a sub, and I also think Oceania, while they managed to make it out of the kind of Rumble stage last time, or rather get into the Rumble stage last time, I still think it was a bit of a weird situation at MSI, and I'm not convinced as yet by Oceania's greatest strength, and I think subs on top of that really hurts them. And then Red Canids, like, they finished 6th in the regular season, and they had a miracle run through playoffs, which is great, but I think there's a lack of international experience in some ways. I think their regular season showed a lot of weakness, and that gives me some eyebrow raises as well.
So for me, I just don't see Peace making it. Important note: we all made these tier lists before we knew the information about Peace. That is an important caveat to have here. So even with this news now, Peace would honestly be a lower, like 1 tier lower for me now, if that would be plausible, even though how I set it up. I think Red Canids, they're honestly the hardest team for me to kind of place on this tier list.
Yeah. Because yeah, I completely get it. No, sorry, Carol.
Yeah, because they were the team that just kind of went through and they kind of had good series, but it wasn't like the other teams I felt like had great series. After talking with people, they're like, who knows? We think they're good, but we have no way of gauging their actual power level.
Yeah, it could just be misreading for me.
I think they'll get to best of 5s, and then they'll get slapped by a team that's far more practiced at this kind of thing. Like, I do think they're going to struggle, especially if one of their top 2 seeds doesn't by default get 2nd and 1st. Like if LNG or Homeway Life are like 3rd or 4th, and Red Canids, they're going to get destroyed in the first best of 5, which is pretty sucky for them. But hey, it's great for us if we're in 3rd and 4th and like Homeway Life isn't in the best of 5 and we have to meet them on the opposite side.
Because the thing about playins is that you always have like 1 or 2 best of 1s go just really fucky. Just like really weird, and this can work.
It's the best of 1,
and you just have to be just like you just hope you don't get hit by the collateral of that. Let's say DFM has a really good group stage, and they get into 2nd. Maybe they lose 1 game versus C9 and beyond, and then they pip them to the post there, and they get 1st. You think, wow, yes, in 2nd place, and then LNG or HLE tanks a couple of best of 1s, going to 3rd, 4th. And suddenly you have to actually play a best of 5 against them, even though you've done really well in your group.
You're up against like this. No, this isn't fair.
Which is kind of exactly what happened with LGD last year. You can lose a couple of best of 1s and just not finish last because you recover in time for the last couple of games, and suddenly you're just coming out with an absolute unholy vengeance. So, as much as we can talk about, the best of 1 stage is really good, there is never a point where I'm going to feel safe in playins, right? Yep. I think you're right about Red Canids, though, Lexi. I think that they're a breath of fresh air to the region in some ways, but the region isn't strong. I don't think CBLOL has had particularly good international performances for quite a while.
They've had as much as what we've had.
Pretty much.
They've had more, arguably.
Yeah, and the thing about LJL is that we've been very clear saying this is the one team from the LJL that can make a dent internationally. After Worlds 2020 play-ins, we were sat there thinking, yes, DFM with Aria has the individual skill, has that high enough level to actually make a dent. We're very clear about that. Even though the region probably is comparable to an OCE, a CB LOL in terms of overall level of talent. We are a very top-heavy region with this team. Hopefully, we can punch above our regional weight. So, Red Canids, we don't know how. We know that they won in their region, but the region isn't that strong. How are they going to adapt to international tournament? That's obviously a very hard thing to tell. But yeah, that's why it's a bit of a mess at the bottom of the table here from all of us, really, because it's very hard to compare not just like regional trends, but putting that onto a volatile international trend too.
It's well and truly a mix of those 5 other minor region teams. We're all kind of in an idea. We've got our own ideas, but they basically kind of meld together, and it just kind of, where are we feeling? Is Initialise particularly high on Russia at the moment, like Gambit old style, or is he actually a bit more disappointed with them? Apparently Gadget going, and now him casting over Gadget has actually thrown the UOL stock like in the gutter. So hey, just how it is. I'm waiting for the...
What are you doing, Sam?
He's gonna get his Gambit stuff. Where is it? Oh, he turned off his light.
I knocked my light over is what I actually did. It's gonna be fine.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, while he's doing that, Nymaera.
Yes, hello.
There is one other tier list.
There is. We should probably go talk to that.
We'll be a bit more quick and casual with this one, as he brings it. Oh no, that's the light.
I can't find it, which is really embarrassing. So what I've done is
knock
over my light.
You know what I found?
Live on podcast.
I found a groups tier list.
Oh wow! Thank you.
Wait. So, for our audio listeners out there, because that's the important thing to talk about. Well, our top of the top looks very similar, even if it's not quite always the top of the top, because Initialise, you haven't put anyone in S+. What the fuck?
I have not. So it's important to note, again, both of my tier lists have been done relative to the competition in their particular regions. This is like relative to groups that I've done here, not relative to the whole tournament. So I put LNG up in S+, relative to play-ins. And they'd probably still be in something like A once they come into groups, honestly, in my mind. But that's kind of it. Do we want to go tier by tier or do the whole list, by the way, Lexi? Because obviously we've got quite different bands and stuff here.
No one noticed that I accidentally forgot PSG for the first bit.
I was wondering, there was a bit of red there. I was like, wait a moment.
What is that? Yeah. Lexi, give me your wisdom. How do you want me to do this?
All right, let's kind of group, because I feel like we've kind of all right, I'm the awkward one. I've actually come to realize this. I'm the awkward one because I've got 3, then 2, then 3, then 2, then 2.
I've only got 3. I've only got 3 groups. You'll know, 3 levels.
Yeah, let's.
I forgot Fnatic as well. Oh, I'm so bad.
Okay, let's group it while we get a drawing of Fnatic and somehow going into there, or an overlay of Fnatic from Nymaera.
Oh, I'm so bad. I'm actually.
I mean, they're
awful.
probably not
I'm
making
so
out of
sorry.
their group, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Wow. Okay.
Let's do it in your group. Let's do it in your groupings, Initialise, because I think that's the safest way. Top of the top, though, ladies and gentlemen, it's FPX, it's Down1 Gaming, and it's EDG, pretty much across the board for all 3 of us, rather.
Yeah, I think I've kept mine down in S tier rather than S+ for me, because I actually don't think this time around there are teams that are absolutely head and shoulders above the competition. I don't think I'm coming into this year's Worlds and going, yeah, it's going to be one of these 2 teams necessarily. I still think the likes of FPX, Down1 Gaming, EDG are favoured, but I'm looking at the tier below and going, yeah, I could see RNG or MAD or PSG or T1 or somebody else coming in and taking a best of 5 against these guys, and I wouldn't be that shocked.
Suddenly a Fnatic logo has appeared. How did that happen?
Funny how this all works, isn't it?
RNG's there now. What is going on?
What's going on?
What happened was, I kind of forgot that some teams existed because we had every single Worlds team on that list. They're like, it's alright, I'll just whack them on there. I just kind of forgot that a lot of logos look quite similar. I was doing it in my lunch break.
Mate. You're the LJL expert, Nymaera. You're not the
I'm not
Worlds
the tip.
expert, Nymaera.
That comes next year. That comes next year, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. When you get the invite, and then
That's the
me
one.
and Sam roll up and rugby tackle and take over.
Yeah.
That's just what we do. Okay. Have you got anything you would like to say that we haven't said about these top 3?
Yeah, so obviously you
top
guys
of
have put EDG, FPX, and Down1 together. I am not necessarily that high on Down1 in regards to that. I think that Down1, looking at the Down1 T1 finals and stuff like that, I'm seriously worried about a lot of what goes on in mid game in the LCK. There are a lot of corners cut. There are
No.
I think particularly with T1, actually, this is quite apparent because I mean I watch the games a lot more closely because I'm a T1 fan, but this does apply to a lot of teams in the LCK where you will notice that there are some very badly identified fights in the LCK where they're in the mid game. Sometimes you'd be like, wow, we're winning a 1-3-1 and we're doing super well in the early game, and T1 gives a kill over to a Camille, gives 2 kills over to a Camille. You're like, bugger, this game's really difficult now. There's a lot of odd plays where you don't necessarily understand your enemy's win conditions in comparison to your own. And this is what happened in so many different LCK teams. I think that Down 1 have been good enough at playing very fast and loose in the mid game and kind of just being on the same page that they can kind of get away with it. They're not going to get away with that against their LPL teams, not realistically. So I think that FPX and EDG are a cut above, and I think that Down 1 are going to be contenders, but I think actually second tier below them. And one of the reasons I think this tournament is going to be so fun is that it's really close at the top. Really, really close.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a perfect way of doing this because Initialise, your Group A of next 4 teams, I think sums it up perfectly.
So while I completely agree that Down 1 look pretty exploitable, as Al said, I'm not convinced entirely by FPX or EDG either. I think they've both shown some weaknesses.
Sacrilege.
And while I think they are still the front runners, and I still think they are probably the best teams in the world, I don't think they're that as far ahead as people would like to think, actually.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's the reason I'm
DFM are
looking at
only
this.
like a step
Yeah.
below them. Like, we got this. We can win worlds.
Exactly, that's it. That's the hopium coming right through there, straight to my veins. But
Oh.
my A tier is T1,
Mhm.
RNG, Mad Lions, and PSG. And I think all of those teams are a little bit less consistent than the teams above them, have very defined strengths and very obvious weaknesses. Like, look at Mad Lions' ability to team fight like monsters in the late game, but then also say, yeah, sometimes people like Armor go even in lane. They're not going to crush lane necessarily also with their picks. Okay, they're going to pick Wukong, a bit out of meta, but just be really good at it. And things like this where you go, okay, well maybe they int bot lane occasionally because Kazi and Kaiser just run at people sometimes because that's the way they play and they're kind of aggro. But I still think they are very good teams. I still think they could look at those guys above them and go, yeah, I could potentially take a best of 5 versus someone like EDG, maybe, on a good day. And it's not like I'm looking at previous heroes going, yeah, no chance, it's not happening. You're not beating Down 1 of 2020,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not the case this year. So I think that tier below is a tier below, but they aren't that far away. And that makes things very exciting.
And I agree with you on that one. I've got Mad Lions and RNG as the S tier teams, and then right below them in A, I've got T1, Gen G, and who you haven't got on your list of Gen G, and Talent
Yeah, they
as
should
well.
be in B tier. I forgot to put something in. That's fine.
Okay, so Gen G would be below. Okay, good to know. Good to know.
That's fine.
Yep. So I think the important thing for me is I think Mad Lions or RNG could be Blue Shell 4th place teams that could potentially be in the finals. That's where I've kind of got those 2 teams more pegged. But I completely see where you're coming from with yours. I absolutely agree with you there. Thank you, Nymaera. I think it's fair. We're very much all mirroring up. I do think there is a slight difference personally for me between Mad Lions and RNG, and then the next 3 of T1, Gen G, and PSG. I'm waiting to see PSG become the next Flash Wolves, like to kind of have that kind of, because I feel like they're just on
in a row.
They're on the precipice of it. Like they're really almost there for me. I want them to just make a really deep run. Like that's what I want. I'd be freaking hyped as anything if they made finals. Like I would be so excited for them. I don't think it's gonna happen, but that's where Mad Lions and RNG are for me. What about you, Nymaera? Because you've got Down 1 lumped with everybody else, and you've already said why you're concerned about Down 1. Do a lot of these teams kind of fall in line in similar ways, but for their own reasons, or is it something else entirely?
I think that a lot of these teams, so I think that the teams which are here, because they could potentially be S, but I've knocked them down, are Mad and RNG. I think that Mad and RNG have some explosible team plans. So my full A is Down 1, T1, Mad, PSG, and RNG. So that's 5 teams. It's really stacked up there at the top. But basically I said, all right, these are probably not going to be like pre-tournament front runners. I think if you were to view like my logic of going into this in terms of where I would initially place them off of postseason form and stuff like that, and then start shuffling around after that, I probably would have put T1 in B and then bumped them up into the same tier as Down 1 just as I put them down, just because I think that T1 internationally become a different beast. We have continually seen that over their history. People have forgotten about that because we haven't seen them internationally for a very long time. I think that there are a lot of big game players on here from what we've been seeing in scrims, or at least from hearsay from seeing in scrims, because sadly I'm not in the position where I get to see them myself. I wish I was. But T1 seems to be coming in quite confident, and scrims, there's only so much you can kind of put onto that. But I look at both, I look at a lot of these teams, and I think this is where it becomes very matchup dependent rather than quality dependent. Like, I think that one probably does beat T1 right now. I think that T1 probably beats someone like Mad. I think that PSG potentially beats Damwon. RNG messes about with everything. This is just the absolute cluster. Like, you can put these teams up against each other and it might look one-sided, but you switch up that matchup and actually they can take heads from anyone in this tier. This is the real melee at A. I think all of them have to punch up to take down an FPX or an EDG, but I think amongst each other, it's an absolute free-for-all. Whereas below that, I think they have to punch up again.
I think that's a fair assessment. Obviously, I slightly disagree with both of you. Obviously, I've included
that's what makes it fun, Lexi. It makes it fun.
But no, absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. And I think there is that where we are each hedging our bets and making those calls. But gentlemen, we've been talking about mostly Asian teams with Mad Lions sneaking in there for all three of us going, actually, we've still got some LEC hopium going for the three of us. Makes sense. We've at least got to go with the favorites. And hey, they were number one. Initialise. We've got a bunch of NA and EU at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm actually, Al.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask you very nicely whether you can move my Generation Gamers beautiful writing down to C tier for me.
Oh, wow. Don't rate them.
There
all
we
right.
go. I'll put them down like...
I think this is the reason for these teams. So I look at all of them and I go, you are all insanely volatile. I look at Fnatic and I go, Hilasang and Bwipo can win you games and throw you games, and you've got a Darius, and you saw that in their playoffs run where they get an amazing best of 5 and then come to the finals and mad smash them. And like, I look at Gen G and I go, Clid's pretty good. BDD, when he gets to 0 and gets to scale, along with Ruler, you know, if they get to play their game, are really good, but they can also just do nothing and get run over as well. And I'm looking at this and I'm seeing Al retyping that in, and that's fair. And I'm just looking at all of these teams and I go, you, like, compared to the A tier teams, where I go, there's clutch factor here, big time. There's serious chance. Like, these are the guys I could see punching up. A lot of these teams down here, like, I still think they could potentially take wins off people up above them. Don't get me wrong. But I've got Fnatic, I've got 100 Thieves, I've got Team Liquid, I've got Rogue, I've got Gen G, I've got everybody else who's currently in groups in the C tier, because I think there is still a bit of a gap between them and the guys above, because I just don't think they're consistent enough. All of these teams flip a lot more. Like, look at their playoffs runs, and I think 100 Thieves regular season was very flippy, and then they kind of got it together in playoffs, and some days a monster closes a monster. Fantastic news. I think he's going to be really good. But we've also seen what happens when some of these guys get skill matched. And I look at people like, you know, some then I go, okay, so you're going into some of these other top lane. It's like, you're not guaranteed an advantageous laning position. I'm looking at some of these junglers and going, okay, Closey, you're not guaranteed a jungle gap. What happens then? And I think sometimes they fall apart from there. Or,
well, that was the old TL
any number
problem,
of these
wasn't it?
like, oh, I look at Rogue and I go, inspired and handsome. You're fantastic when you get golden resource and get to carry. But we've seen what happens when they're kind of stymied and fall apart, and that happened in playoffs, for example.
And
so
I think a great way to look at these teams, for me at least, are these are the teams that should be worried about some of the teams coming in from play-ins. And I think that's where I'd love to hand it over to you, Nymaera, to kind of get your pick of the litter, because Initialise has kind of set out perfectly that these aren't the teams really, because these are the ones that could have more issues than anything else.
So there is something to that. I do want to take a quick stop off for a bit of a tangent. It's going to skip my B tier very quickly and go down to the NA teams in C, because I don't want this to be a NA depression again. Oh my god, this region is awful, whatever. I think NA has sent good teams to this world. I just think the overall level and how close the clump is for all competitive teams is just very, very stacked. I think that I like 100 Thieves. I like TL, actually, if you go into a lot of their playoffs form as well. I think that, well, at least maybe not the finals, but I look at what they're bringing to the table, and I think they're actually pretty good. I think actually these teams could take games off of the B tier. Maybe you get one best of one where you go into to the A tier as well. I just think the overall level of competitive League of Legends is very high between all regions. We don't have like one region which is smashing everyone. I do think that this B and C thing is quite interchangeable for me. I think that there are some very volatile moments. I think that stylistically you're going to have to look at some things. I think that looking at someone like Rogue, actually, they have a potential to make some real upsets, even in an FPX Damn One group, because they're a really good best-of-1 team. And I think that there's been a lot of dialogue about how a lot of teams are not actually even, a lot of pro players aren't actually looking towards the Korean junglers for like where they're getting their jungle inspiration. They're looking for Inspired. Inspired is the guy which is inspiring a lot of guys internationally.
Inspired and LJL. Like,
that's what Nymaera, absolutely. You've got these.
Early pathing is phenomenal.
I think that, and I think one of the best things about this world is, and what we saw in this world, and maybe a bit in the last one as well, is that a lot of the boogeymen have started to die out. Like, there isn't just this... The boogeyman.
Boogie's not here, though, mate. Don't know. Why'd you do that?
He died in playins last year, that's what I'm saying.
No!
But, like, what's happened is that teams no longer have that phantom, in the back of their minds, right? They're not shadowboxing with something greater than themselves. A lot of these teams will be coming in as equal competitors. And I think that changes the mentality. I think that a team like Rogue, even though it's a hard group, are not out of this world. I think there is a good chance they snipe some best of ones and suddenly they're through into second. Just like in playins, it's very volatile. It's a double best of one round robin, which does change things again. You get a chance to adapt, but I think that B and C does not mean you are hopeless on my list. It just means you are unfavored, but not out of worlds.
I mean, I'll throw this in there. Draven's ult gets execute damage now on how many glory stars he gets. And you know who's in Rogue's bot lane? It's probably the best Draven player at the tournament. Probably. I feel
Ango's
like
not there, so yeah, I'm always going to be like...
I think has played a bit of Draven as guys
that's
like that.
true.
You know. And I suspect, some of the there's no Jackie love this time, so there's no big Draven player there.
Is
but,
Ghost
look at
a
these
big
guys.
player?
I don't know. I feel like he might have been back in the day, but I don't want to.
Yeah, that's like I've got that weird.
I'm just saying, there's some little meta things where you go, Hans Hammer on Draven could be an interesting moment.
Yeah.
Just saying, there's people like this. You go, yeah, I could absolutely agree with that. There's some interchangeable here. There's some room to punch up.
But we'll have to wait and see, gentlemen. We have still got a few weeks until we actually get to see how this is all going to play out. Obviously, we're going to be putting out another podcast episode in between here and then. But we're done with our hypothetical tier list. We might come back and do another tier list next week, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because tier lists are fucking great.
Content,
it's multiple bits of content. We get this video, we get a video for the tier list, we get the podcast, and then we get to tweet out our tier list. It's so much content. We get like 3 bits of it. Ugh, more please, more. You want more, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we are putting together our document all about DFM. There will be a public version going out within the next week or so. We are trying to get that done between worlds, but that is just the 3 of us, and we do try and do our full due diligence. Penned back for next week, though, podcast-wise, where hopefully we'll be able to release that out to the public, but hold off, but we are currently doing that. Gentlemen,
yes.
Let's talk about the best of 1 round robin matchups without doing our research and watching all the VODs of all the teams, because let's just go in blind as anything else and just assume DFM are the greatest team in the world. Group B, best of 1. We're going to do percentages here because we want to rate our opinion and the likelihood of the result happening. So, for an example, I think I said to you guys separately...
40% DFM going first, or...
DFM, 40% coming first. Another one is DFM versus Rascal Jester. I predicted the 3-0 for DFM being about an 80% chance for me. We're going to kind of go in this kind of wheelhouse, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're wondering, it's like, oh, they're very different. This is our opinion, so we can kind of be very vast on these. Who wants to take the first match and kind of lead us off with DFM versus Beyond Gaming?
I would love to do this. That's okay. I'll take this one. Just because I kind of went through some of the logic beforehand in terms of DFM having almost like a similar foil regionally to what Beyond was to PSG in Rascal Jester, and then to a lesser extent Axis as well. And they played a best of 5 against both of them in the last stages of playoffs. And they very handily dealt with hypercarry teams. Now, they weren't Tristana teams. Of course, Doggo is a huge Tristana player as well. I don't know whether he's been playing that too much recently. But DFM are a team that knows how to answer Aphelios. They know how to draft around it. this is a single best of one round robin. This is going to be the kind of point where you say one bad draft determines this game as well as good play or bad play. I think if they face Beyond towards the end of playoffs where they've settled in, I would say 70% DFM beating Beyond, actually. At the start of playoffs, I would say 50-50. If it goes towards the end of it, though, I think DFM, when they have settled in, much like we saw at MSI, they didn't do very well against Infinity in their first round robin, but in the second round, they absolutely stomped them. DFM would love to face the Pool 1 teams a little later on where they've settled in, and then hopefully I think that would give them a good matchup. So 70% at the end of it, 50% at the start.
Okay.
All right. That's pretty good. That's very good odds. You
Mm.
got any other opinions on Beyond Initialize?
I
don't,
might-
so that's why I'm
yeah,
coming
no,
to
I think
you.
that's fair. I might tip the odds slightly more in Beyond's favor because I do think they're quite good.
Which is fair.
Which is fair enough. But yeah, I think Al's got a reasonable take there. That with a little bit of a DFM tinted glasses on that we all have, just because we know the team better and we rate them.
Of
Honestly,
course.
it's not like we're coming in and going, they're bad. We're going, yeah, these are mechanically good. They've proved themselves already on an international stage. I'm excited to see them do it. I think for me, DFM probably are my nod for second place in this group.
Mm.
With that being relatively tenuous, because there's a lot of teams who would love to say exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I do think Beyond are probably pegged to be the number one team coming out of this, unless you're an LCS fan, and of course you just think C9, and then you just look at everybody other team here, and you're like, wait, we got the minor region team. This is going to be a free first. Oh god, you guys are so delusional.
Ooh.
Oh, go watch a minor region for 5 minutes. You guys are. You'll actually just be watching better League of Legends. It's crazy, man. I need to stop. Oh man, my LCS copium is just like in the toilet.
Let me just put
man.
your face on screen so they can hear you. Just see you being
I am
smug.
so high on 100T, and I am so low on some of the other teams. Like, I don't like Team Liquid for me are like a tier below 100T for me at the moment. Like, I'm really not. Next one, because I'm already starting, so it might as well. It's DFM versus C9, and boys, I am proud to say that it's 70% for Beyond if we get them a bit later. Oh man, if we get C9 in the first 2 games, they're fucked, lads. They're not going to have their hands warmed. They're going to be all antsy. Arya's going to come in, stare down perks. Fudge isn't going to have a tape measure. You think the 19-year-old is a tape measure? Nah, that's not happening. Ebby's going to gap him. It's going to be great. Let's fucking go. It's 90% DFM. Okay, that's a bit unrealistic. It's 75%. Seriously, I do think we are favored. I think the jungle matchup is going to be a complete gap. Steel can actually play more than one jungle style, people. I know. Imagine that. Fucking wild. The other thing is, C9 won't have the reliance of using Sven as their kind of bot lane anchor, which they have been using throughout a lot of this season, to kind of be like, things are going really bad. Let's just rely on our bot lane. And then they transition bot lane power and pressure from this small little part around the map. They're very good at transitioning them, especially with putting Sven in random other lanes just to farm up a lane or two and then transition back around all over the place. They're very good at doing this. Guess who's been doing that all fucking season, and we keep mentioning it? Fucking Yuta and gang, like they're so ready. Oh, okay, I'm done. I can't keep going.
Yep.
Oh, we're gonna beat them.
I'll put this out there for Cloud9 as well. They are not as good as they were in spring flat out period. They are so much more inconsistent, and C9 that does not get a solid early start to a game, even if they go even, can fall apart. Blabber is a bad jungler from behind, bluntly. He pulls an MLXG. He is kind of he's
their best player.
He can be.
I think he is.
I think Fudge. I think
think
Fudge
he's
over
the most
Summer was
important.
mine.
Oh, sorry, I
actually.
thought we were talking about Fudge. Sorry.
No, I'm
Oh,
talking about Blabber.
Oh no, I think he's their worst player.
So I think Blabber is their most important player. In the fact that a Blabber who is even or behind, at least in the current meta, like he has not looked good on things like Diana or Viego, partly because they don't have the same early agency, and he needs to wait for a couple items before he can really look for fights. And I think also, bluntly, Blabber is a jungler who requires his laners to just be there on a whim. And I don't think and that's been a bit of a problem with the likes of Fudge and Perks do sometimes want to play for like roam plays to bot or their own plays in lane, right? And that's not necessarily been Blabber's strength, actually. Whereas you look at someone like Niski, who has actually at points been like, okay, I'll just roam, I'll sack lane a bit, but I'll come and join you. And I think that's hurt C9. I think it's been worse in summer where they haven't got the same read on meta, where Blabber's champion like dominance hasn't been the same. And I think that could hurt them. But they've
Yes.
got time off to relearn a meta, to not be behind the curve post MSI and play catch up for the rest of the split. So I'm hoping for C9's sake they come in a bit stronger. But I think you see through the summer how you beat C9. And I'm looking at the teams in this group and I'm going, yeah, well, you can do that quite happily, actually.
Yeah, I think that, so I kind of talked about the beyond side of things with DFM in terms of like, okay, they've played around hyper carry bots before, they played through top side. I think actually with C9, if you're going to butt heads with DFM through top side, it ain't going to be happy. It's not going to be a happy conversation for you. I think at MSI,
it's not an easy win.
I think at MSI, DFM indexed a little too hard onto just being an Udyr team, and they didn't really have the best game plans when they didn't have the Udyr, or rather they were trying to play as if they had Udyr when they didn't have Udyr. And that kind of hit them in that second round robin game against C9. I think that they're a lot more versatile coming into summer. We already knew that because, of course, the gang factor coming in for Kazu. That changed the way that you play around supports roaming and a lot of vision game through that. I think that DFM's top side are much more consistent and much more coordinated than someone like C9 if they're not on form. Of course, this all depends on who's actually coming in on good form, who's got good practice, travel, all this other stuff. I think that it's going to be a little closer than potentially what Lexi thinks in that sense, particularly if it is, particularly if C9 come in and they have hit world form and they just like, because again, you got Perks internationally. He is very difficult to play against international in a lot of ways. Yes, MSI was one thing. I think that it's for me it is DFM favored. And I know this is going to be like complete DFM hopium. I know we are LJL viewers. I watch
it's kind of the podcast,
I watch NA as well.
You subscribe to this.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I did a lot of research on the NA playoffs, stuff like this, and watched through them because, of course, I did that one content video with Thorin about LCS playoffs and stuff like that, where I was like, oh, bugger, I've actually,
by the way,
instead of watching casually, I've actually got to watch it as an expert. Damn, I wasn't expected to. It was really good stuff. But I think the thing with C9 is that sometimes they cut corners to make plays, and this is something that's been talked about all the way from spring. I think it was Papa Smithy which talked about it actually quite a lot in the spring finals on his secondary broadcast with G4.
Oh yes, that was cracked.
With Doe, which is a really fun broadcast. I think that DFM's top side are much more likely to be coordinated between their jungle and their laners. It is going to depend a lot on some things about meta. You're not going to have Ryze for free anymore in this meta. Ryze is not that great. Weird flex. It's a great flex, Mighty Gandalf. You know that.
I mean, Brian Kibler was on the analyst desk. It's a great cast. Go watch that.
Yeah. But I think that there are definitely points where I think that C9 could throw early, and I don't think they're going to get free advantages through bot lane. They're not going to get free advantages. They might win through bot. They might win bot, but
Vulcan isn't going to just gap Kazu. Like, if anything, Vulcan is probably
gang. You mean gang?
Gang? No. Because Kazu's not.
Oh, sorry,
there.
you're not going to gap. Yes, I was like, how do you phrase this?
Gang is probably going to gap Vulcan. And by the way, you know what? We know that gang loves to play this champion as much as Core JJ likes to play Nami. Bard is in the format, ladies and gentlemen, as a support pick, and oh my god, can you wait for the 3 or 4 man gang ults to just come back out?
His Rakan is going to be very fun to watch.
Yeah,
that as well.
I'm just saying, there is a world where, like, obviously Lucian with his changes, actually, we see a bit of Lucian bot again, actually.
Yeah.
Lucian, Lulu, Lucian, Tarek are very fun.
Lucian Nami, I've heard, is quite good.
Lucian Rakan's very good because he applies the buff twice.
You won't get that in solo queue. It's the best solo queue.
I think Lucian Rakan is the one that we're going to see a lot more because it fits what teams are going to be doing.
That's perhaps the one thing that
Warm as well.
Because, like, I'm looking at like best Lucian bot laners of all time. Sven's in that list.
Yeah, he is.
And you got Forgiven.
But you just ban
Sven. Deft is a really good.
Yeah, potentially do. But I'm just saying, like that. Like again, like for all that we are giving DFM an edge here in some ways because of the volatility of C9 and some of the issues we've seen in terms of like, well, what happens if things go a little bit awry in the early game, or some of their like big plays around things like heralds or top dives go wrong.
Sure.
Like it would be unwise to assume this team isn't dangerous. And the thing is, even it, because I actually think it's going to be, at least in my mind, a fight for second between C9 and DFM. Even if C9 gets
more
third,
likely, yeah.
I think if they went into someone like HLE, Blabber and Fudge could absolutely have a field day versus Willer and Morgan. I think that could
Like,
be a really fun matchup.
I think the thing
Yeah.
about a lot of these like percentages things is that because of the format and because of there being like we're not going to have seen teams play on even 11 18. It's going to be like 11 17, right? 11 16.
16, I think. Yeah.
Something like that. We're going to have like a
that's
2-3
wild.
patch removal from a lot of these teams' playoffs. I think any of the percentage we give it an error bar of 15 to 20%. Legit. So if I'm saying, oh, it's 50-50, a bad draft could add like 20% onto that. It's like, yeah, okay, Beyonder like actually got like a 70% chance to win now. Bugger.
It could
But yeah.
also go down to a 30% and just int themselves even harder.
Yeah.
Like it is that kind of
Okay.
flexibility.
So-
And I do think that's a really good caveat to add on.
And I think these second the pool 2 matchups are ones which I don't know if I can give a confident percentage for them
No.
because I know the other 2 regions better. I think we've been through the 2 matchups where we can give more definite percentages. Maybe this is something that we might have to revisit with some VOD reviews in a later podcast before World starts. But you all
You set it up perfectly, my lord. That's what I was just about to say.
Maybe we do that.
Next-
Maybe we save them for a later podcast. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. Bang on. Next
Wow.
week's podcast, we'll do the definitive rankings of Group B. And when it's definitive, it's actually what's going to be happening because we're going to talk to the script writers. Because remember,
Yes.
we've already complimented the
script.
script writers on
Oh,
an
yeah.
amazing group draw
gotta get that away.
already. Like, they got EDG and FPX in the same group. Like, well done, script writers. Well done. I'm very impressed with you so far. You put LNG and On My Life. We get to see Chovy versus Tarzan. Like, there's so many things here. I'm very well done. Well done. But that will be for another podcast. That'll be for another podcast.
I think we've actually
Group
got some.
podcast.
I mean, if anyone has any questions in chat and stuff, I think now's probably a good time to start asking them because, like, I think this is a lot of very raw thoughts coming right out of it. We're not completely DFM hopium. There is a lot of volatility in this. I think that LJL fans are realistic. They can have realistic hopes for our team. Like,
Agreed.
seriously, and if you are not an LJL watcher, watch this podcast, watch a couple of the past ones. We're quite certain about DFM strengths and their good matchups. You've seen some MSI content too. Don't sleep on the team. Not a shoe-in for any first, second, third place. Who the hell knows? But definitely not one to sleep on. Don't just say, DFM definitely a third, fourth. Like, it's definitely not sorted the other way either.
It's still open, but we'll find out. The mighty Gandalf asks, if DFM versus Homeway Life happens, I'm assuming they mean obviously in a best of 5.
Yeah.
Who do you think will
You had a lot of thoughts on
win?
this, Sam, didn't you?
Well, without me seeing them personally play any games at Worlds, I am going to go. It's gonna go full 5 games. I want a banger, and I want the winner of this one to be taking the fight. Like, I want this to be the second seed versus the third or fourth seed, and I want this to be a full 5-game banger. But I think I'm going slightly DFM because of copium. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'll throw this out there, and this is why this is quite a difficult matchup to read. HLE have got 2 superstar, arguably at points in their history, absolute best in the world players. They have Deft and they have Chovy. Chovy has performed across the split, mostly. Honestly, I would say there's some concerns in sort of like mid to late split for HLE actually on his part, where he would be kind of getting farmed but not doing very much, which was a bit problematic. But you've got some sleeping dragons on that team. Come playoffs, or specifically the gauntlet run, HLE turned it the fuck on. Vista came along online, and that really helped Deft get out and start being the dangerous carry we know he can be. And that was a really big deal. So suddenly you had 2 threats, and Vista being all over the place and being really, really good. That volatility is still there. We know there's a lot of young players on this team. There's a lot of players who, like Morgan, who've had a little bit of experience, but not like vast top level competition experience before. And like that volatility in performance levels we've seen worries me a bit. And it's also one of those ones where we say, well, if Chovy is held accountable or doesn't get a lot done, the team looks lost. But if Vista turns up, Def turns up as well to join Chovy, that team is a threat. Even
Who's
so,
winning?
we've seen the other side of it, and I'll say Morgan and Willa are bloody exploitable. Willa's very new, and Morgan has not looked very good. Whatever Munchables might tell you, and I know he's on a hype train, I know he's a fan, Morgan has not looked good. And you do that into somebody like Steel and Ebby, who have made a career out of ruining top laners' lives.
Yes.
You have a very clear win condition. And even like people like Chovy and Def, you're going into Utapon and Arya, who are no slouches, and while they might get edges, I don't think it's blowouts. And when you look at the top side, it's like, yeah, that could probably be a blowout.
Yeah.
And that's where I would possibly say, with a bit of copium, DFM can take that.
I think it's I think it's 3-1 or 3-2 DFM actually.
Ooh, I
I
love
think it's
it.
3-1 or 3-2 because and again, this is based off of stylistic matchups, right? DFM have looked at their best where they get like level 3, 4 plays through top side and they just run the game through that. Often through Ebby smashing a level 1. And again, Morgan is the kind of player who does get beat up early. Stylistically, HLE, even though they have a strength against arguably the great strength DFM have in Arya, have a top side which is happy to play through the early game. And as much as HLE are incredibly talented individual players through Chovy and through Deft, I think that DFM, if they don't get blown out in lane and there isn't like a huge mismatch from nerves, from bad tournament prep, from all this other stuff, if we see things kind of go towards DFM's comfort zone in terms of meta, I think they win through topside early, use that to snowball into an advantage, and DFM are ruthless snowballers. I think in a best of 5, I think I would actually favor them. And this does depend on stuff like DFM, if they don't have so because if Rise is actually just completely out of meta and you can't play Rise anymore because the E nerfs and the Q nerfs and stuff like that, does that change the way that you ban out Arya? Because if you ban out like his LeBlanc and Aurelia, which is still strong, he can't fall back to a Rise now. Maybe he has to go towards the TF. Does that change things?
Galio's still in the back pocket.
Actually, you're probably not banning out Arya at all if you're HLE because you have Chovy, because you don't care about that lane matchup. Maybe you ban out stuff you think you can.
But then I love that, right? Because then if they go, we don't have to ban out Arya, Arya just goes, peace out, lads. I'm taking Twisted Fate, and I'm just never gonna lane versus this guy. And then, and it's like, where did you learn to do this? He's like, motherfucker, I taught the player that did this last Worlds called fucking Ace how to do this. How do you think he was so good in solo queue that just fell asleep at the keyboard?
I'll add in a slight sliver of reality here. That you're thinking of, if you're playing Twisted Fate into Chovy,
he's gonna Aurelia.
I will hoover up all of the CS, destroy your tower, and probably potentially go for a solo kill. Like, there are players you can pick TF into freely, and there are players you blind pick 3F into, and they go.
Oh no, it's not going to be a blind pick. No, it's going to be a fifth on red side safe pick.
Look, put it this way, like. I think while I'm like massively high off my tits on hopium, I think that DFM actually have stylistically a good match into HLE, and we talked to again like we've chatted to a couple of people, and yeah, Chovy is just so crazy. He is genuine, like he always gets resources. The question is whether he'll leverage it. I'm just wondering if HLE lose early hard enough through all parts of the map, because DFM very good at playing through topside very early and then just solidifying the rest of the map. Whether HLE can stabilize through that. And I think DFM are a level of the team where they do actually punish teams for giving them early advantages now. So I think actually DFM against an HLE and a best of 5, maybe they don't need to feel as afraid as maybe we're kind of talking about. I think it's a hard best of 5 either way. It's doable, right? It's doable. Okay, that's on like the very best side of it. If on the other side, like, Arya's choking internationally like he did in that first game at MSI. They have a really bad meta read. Their Utapon and Gang are like playing weak side all the time and actually getting smashed, and DFM don't get or Steel chooses to play one weird champion, doesn't really flex a champion pool or anything like that. Yeah, DFM could fall apart. But from what we've seen in terms of like the identities of the team, in terms of identity, I think DFM have a good matchup here.
I think Chovy's not even the best top mid laner at this tournament.
Oh, he's not. Doinby is.
Yeah.
Obvious.
Yeah. I also think Showmaker's better than him.
Right now, yeah, potentially.
Maybe. I also think Viper has a reasonable shout at being
best player, yeah.
Best player. I mean,
as good.
Been phenomenal.
I will also call a player who rarely gets credited, but is now starting to get credited. By the way, it's very obvious. It's Niski. I think Niski would be fucking great at nullifying what Chovy wants to do. He's like, oh yeah, you farmed 11 CS per minute? Me too! That's all I do! I only CS all the time! I'm really good at doing it!
You gotta put up there as one of the better mid laners in the world right now. I think he's
Absolutely.
phenomenal.
I just don't know if the gap that Chovy normally has is going to be there, and that's an interesting question to pitch to you both. Do you think he's going to have the gap he normally has versus a lot of these mid laners?
I think that Arya is often called around the map, and I think actually the way that he'll get gaps is Arya is called to a play top, and doesn't quite reset very well, and Trevor uses that to his advantage. So I think potentially it could happen through external things, not individual laning, more about the lane management. I think it could happen. Do I think it's enough to carry a game? That's where I'm saying maybe not actually, especially if someone like Ebby is just ruining the map at that point.
Yeah, if Ebby and Steel and Gang are just destroying things, and Unipon's just like, guys, I've got so much gold, I don't know what to do with it, and I'm playing Ziggs. It's like, oh, okay, sure, because we got Aurelia mid, so we got Ziggs in the bot lane, and it's a little bit doomed because it's just a ticking time bomb of the Ziggs bombs. Gentlemen, let's honestly say, I think we're about here. Have we got anything else that people would like to say, or anything?
I think this is fine. I think that if we go on to other stuff now, it's going to be a bit more half-hearted than the stuff that we're quite confident in. I think so. I think we take a week away. We go and read up on some of our facts. I think we keep things very concise here, and hopefully we'll see LJL getting a motherfucking group stage appearance.
Remember, as always, ladies and gentlemen, you can find this podcast on all audio streaming platforms. If you're a YouTuber person, like, comment, subscribe. It really does help out the channel a huge amount. It really does. The YouTube algorithm is a real thing. And if you're on iTunes, rate us 5 stars. Leave us a comment. We'll give you a shout out. Ladies and gentlemen, to end us off, I'm going to say the national anthem for LJL at this waltz. Ding, 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 the church bells ring. DFM are here, hear their dominance sing. Ring, 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 the church bells sing. DFM is here, hear their dominance sing. Take care, everybody, have a great one. Woo! Let's